I made the executive decision that I'm gonna go without glasses right now, okay? Here we are, once again, 5 months later. Whew, it's a lovely day for filming, and I'm ready to go. I don't know what that was, I'm sorry. Hello everyone, I'm JJ Summers, and I'm very glad that you decided to join me today. Welcome back. I know it's been like 5 months? By the way, if you notice, I'm in a different setting. This is actually my church's coffee room. I'm the only one here at the moment, and so we have a few things to talk about. One of them that's going to be like the main focus for today is that I went on a cruise. What? I went on a cruise. It was meant to be like my graduation cruise, like graduation present type thing. I graduated in 2019, so kind of the story behind that is I had already had plans to go to New York with my youth group the summer I graduated, and so we were planning to do it the following summer, the summer of 2020, which we all know how 2020 went down. And so that cruise got canceled. We scheduled it again in 2021. It got canceled, and so instead we did a road trip, which was super fun. That's another video I'll do later on at some point. But then we rescheduled it for 2022. That got canceled. And then we scheduled it for the very first week of May 2023. And it happened. And it was spectacular. It's interesting, this year is going to be a year where there's a lot more traveling than I'm used to. I went on the cruise, and then 2 weeks later, I went on a women's retreat to Lincoln City in Oregon. It was just like a weekend trip. Nevertheless, it was a very fun trip. And then in August, I'm going on a trip with my youth group as a youth leader. I'm going to be going with them to Southern California. This will be my first time actually like being in LA, because that's where we're staying. We're staying in LA. 4 out of the 7 days that we're gonna be there, we're going to Disneyland while we're there, which I've never been to Disneyland. So it's gonna be really fun. It's a year of firsts for me, which, you know, is very exciting. I love traveling. I love doing fun stuff out of the norm, you know, out of my bubble, out of my routine. I love doing fun new things and going on adventures and stuff like that. So I'll be making videos on those separate things, like those separate trips. I'll be sharing pictures and videos of the cruise that I went on with my parents. Here's kind of the story of how, like, some of the basics that happened during our cruise. Before we even were able to get on the cruise, we had to fly to Orlando. So we left April 29th. We drove up to Portland. We left out of PDX and then spent a little bit of time there, just, you know, checking in and all the normal stuff, getting to your terminal and your gate and stuff like that, which that part tends to give me some anxiety, you know. I'm very grateful that my dad was there, and, you know, I'd like to think that eventually I could learn to travel on my own and fly on my own. But one, the thought of that seems very overwhelming to me, like having all the information to like check in and, you know, knowing how to do stuff and knowing where to go. I could learn it, like I know I'm capable of that, but it seems really overwhelming and scary. Two, I'm a woman. Traveling by yourself when you're a woman can be a little spooky. And so that's another thing I'm like, is it worth it? Who knows? I might try it eventually, but like I can drive places by myself. So that's not really a big, you know, a big issue. It's more so the flying that would be a little weird. But anyway, so we spend a little time in PDX, and then I think our flight left for Denver at around 3:30-ish, give or take a few minutes. We had, I think, like a 4-hour layover, which didn't seem like a super long time because, you know, you got to get to your terminal a little early. You know, you gotta eat, do different stuff. So it didn't really seem like a long layover just because we were moving a lot of the time. We left Denver for Orlando at like 11 o'clock at night. It was late. It was a late flight. It was like an overnight flight. And my mind is always perplexed with like the time changes, and like I'm not good with math, and all of that complicates like the flight time. And so we ended up getting into Orlando at around like 5:30 in the morning-ish Orlando time. So we got there really early in the morning. It was really cool. Like I love experiencing new places and places that I've heard about. Like it was literally across the country. Like it was just really cool to be able to just leave home for a while and experience a new place. Even before the cruise, you know, it was just cool to be there. That kind of stuff gives me a lot of joy. Just experiencing new places. We get to Orlando, we walk outside at like 5:30 in the morning in Orlando, and it's just this thick wall of humidity just hits you in the face. And it wasn't even like cold. It was like that gross like in between temperature where like it's like lukewarm almost, like it's slightly warmer than body temperature. There was wind and stuff, but it wasn't like cold outside, and it almost made it harder to breathe. Like it kind of felt like you were, at least initially, like obviously you get used to it, but like initially it feels like you're kind of suffocating at first and you're like just breathing through a thick sponge of mist and blech, you know. That's what it felt like. And so that was an interesting like thing that we had to get used to. And so we caught a shuttle to the car rental place because we couldn't check into our hotel until like 1 o'clock p.m. and we got into Orlando at like 5:30 in the morning. So we had a while before we could even check into our hotel. We rent a car and we just kind of drive around. We were gonna get on the cruise ship the next day. As of like where I'm talking about, it's April 30th, Sunday at like 6 in the morning. We decide to just drive around and see the sights and get breakfast and stuff. But first we decided to drive to Port Canaveral, which is where we would be sailing out of the next day. And we got to see a couple of different cruise ships docked at Port Canaveral. Like it's so crazy because you see these cruise ships on like screens and, you know, pictures of them. It's really hard to wrap your head around how big a cruise ship actually is, even the smaller ones, until you are there in person. It's massive. It's meant to be like a city on a boat. Like that's literally what it is. It was crazy because like the biggest cruise ship in the world was there when we were there the first day, and we were just like driving around to see the port that we would be going to the next day. The Wonder of the Seas, which is I think one of, if not the biggest cruise ship currently in the world. It was at the dock and like it was giant. Like if I'll find a picture and like put it somewhere on the screen. It's called Wonder of the Seas, and that's not the one that we went on. We actually ended up going on Independence of the Seas, which is a smaller ship, but even that one was massive. You know, we drive to Port Canaveral, we see the ships that are there, and then there's like a tornado warning, which was super interesting. There was no tornadoes, but there was that tropical rainstorm that followed shortly after we got that tornado warnings on our phones. Like, that was kind of spooky. Then we experienced driving through the tropical rainstorm, which was pretty spooky, to be honest with you. And then we drove to the closest Denny's to escape it and just get out of the weather. And then literally like 2 hours later, it was perfectly sunny Orlando weather, like it had never happened. Yeah, so after that, we just kind of killed some more time driving around. We went to Target to get, you know, some stuff that we needed last minute for the cruise the next day. Then I think we got lunch and stuff like that. We just drove around a little bit more, and then we went and checked into our hotel. And because we had an overnight flight from Denver to Orlando, I personally had slept maybe 45 minutes the whole night, because it's not very often that I get to fly on planes, and so even just sitting there sedentary in a plane seat was still like an experience I'm not used to. Like I didn't want to miss anything, you know, and I just couldn't fall asleep very much. Like if I did at all, it was maybe just a few minute nap, you know. And so we checked into our hotel room. We all absolutely die. Like we all crash. I take like a 6-hour nap. Like I basically get almost a full night's sleep just in a nap. Then obviously I couldn't go back to sleep for a while during the actual nighttime, and so I'm just up, and you know, I think I took a shower and stuff, and then we woke up the next morning and got ready to take our car back to the rental place. So we caught a shuttle from the car rental place back to the airport, which is where we would catch a shuttle from the airport to Port Canaveral. We caught the shuttle from the airport to Port Canaveral. We check in. Our check-in process was really quick and easy, and we got on the ship. It's crazy, like just being on a ship. First, we walked through the Royal Promenade. So the Royal Promenade is like this strip mall, basically. It has a bunch of shops, a couple bars, and like a cafe and a pizza place, and just a lot of really cool stuff. Sometimes they would have like live music happening. Sometimes they'd throw like parties there, like themed parties. One of the nights they had like an 80s party, which was super cool. That was really cool, and we stayed and listened to some of the music and watched some of the people dancing, and it was really fun to see and just to be there for. We just kind of vibe for a while, and we kind of see some of the sights, and we stay on the observation deck as the ship is pulling out of Port Canaveral. And I'll put a picture here. You can actually see the NASA space launch from Port Canaveral, and it was so cool to even just see that from a distance. It's kind of hard to see on the picture very well. I'll make sure to try to zoom in as much as I can. It was kind of right next to like the Space Force area. That was just super cool. Yeah, we leave Orlando. It was beautiful weather, and the water was like this beautiful cobalt blue. Yeah, the first day we just kind of explored the ship a little bit. We see different sites on board, and you know, like the different shops and bars and restaurants and all kinds of fun stuff like that. And then we go to dinner that night in the main dining room. I'm just gonna say this, like the food on the ship, there was only one meal that I didn't like as much, and it was only because it was bland. It had nothing to do with like how it was cooked or anything. It was just because there wasn't as much salt in the food itself. But other than that, the food on the ship was so good. It was so good. We have dinner in the main dining room the first night, and then the second day we go to Coco Cay. We get there pretty early in the morning. There was like 3 different sections of the island. There's like a thrill island area where there's like intense water slides are, and then there's like chill island, and then I can't remember the third part. We hang out on the chill island portion of Coco Cay, where like you can just hang out on the beach, and there's a bunch of like chairs you can sit on, and there's complimentary food and snacks and, you know, drinks and stuff like that. One of the coolest things about Coco Cay that I experienced had nothing to do with like the island itself. It was more so that I actually got to swim in the ocean, which, living in Oregon, going to the Oregon coast, I never want to swim in the ocean. I'll put my feet in and maybe I'll get to like knee deep, but that's the extent of how much I'll get in the ocean here, because it's ice cold, like ice baby cold. The water in the Bahamas, it felt like a swimming pool. Like obviously it was warm outside, and so your body's a little warmer, and when you get in the water, there's that initial shock you feel like when you get in a swimming pool, like, ooh, my body has to adjust to this, it's a little cool. And then once you get in, it's like the perfect temperature. And that's how the ocean was. By all accounts, I could have been in a swimming pool, except there was just a lot of salt, you know? But I actually like swam in the ocean which was like I had never done that before. So that was really cool. It was absolutely beautiful weather. Like, it was perfect. Sky was blue, and the water, like the color of the water itself, it's like this beautiful, like aquamarine color, and like the deeper you go, the richer the blue is, as opposed to like here in Oregon, the water is kind of a bluish gray, you know. But it was so beautiful. Yeah, it was just a whole different world. It was very, very cool just to get to be there, you know. We hang out on Coco Cay for a while. We have lunch. We hang out, you know, on the beach, and we swim, and then we head back to the ship, and then we rest for a little bit, and then we get ready for dinner, which that night we had dinner at a place called Chops Grill, which is one of specialty restaurants on the ship. And it's basically like a really nice steakhouse kind of vibe. Oh my goodness. Like, the food there, again, immaculate. I'm trying to remember what we did after that. I feel like we did something, but I don't remember exactly. But yeah, and then the third day was when we sailed to Nassau, which is another island in the Bahamas. And that day we went on a culinary tour. We were in like this van with like a local tour guide, and he took us to different venues like on the island. And we went to 4 different places. The first one was like this hole in the wall shack restaurant, and we tried like this mini meal. The plate was maybe about like this big. Like the plate wasn't very big. We had like fried snapper, this really good rice, peas and grits, and oh my goodness, it was so good, so good. And then our second destination was a place where they sell this thing called guava duff, which is essentially like a dessert food. And it's basically like a pastry with like diced guava inside. It's like smothered in this sweet butter sauce, and it was really good, very good. The place that we went to try this also sold like really good hot sauce, and my dad bought a bottle of it. It was really good. And while I was there, I got like this iced mango matcha latte. It was really good. Then we went to a place where they sold herbal teas. It was called Tasty Teas. They like sell like really powerful herbal teas that like have incredible benefits for your body. I'll put a picture of the tea that I got from the shop. It's like this bay lavender tea. I think the benefits were, it's really good for arthritis and joint pain. I don't particularly struggle with that, but if you know me, you know that I love lavender, and so I just wanted to try the lavender tea. Their website is on the package, and so if you wanted to go check it out, I mean, they ship internationally, and like they have a website where you can buy any of their teas. I highly recommend it. But yeah, and so our fourth stop was a distillery. There they make like 3 different types of rum and 1 vodka, and we got to have like a little sample cup of one of their pina coladas that they make. It was really good. And they took us back into like the area where all of it's like made and bottled and stuff, and they showed us around the property, and it was beautiful. And then yeah, I think that was the last destination, but it was a really cool experience just learning about Bahamian culture, the people there, their history, and like how much they endure every day, and how different things are for them than it is here. Yeah, it was just a really cool experience. So yeah, we went back to the ship after that. We chilled out for a little bit, and then we got ready for dinner, which the third night we had dinner at another specialty restaurant called Izumi's, which was a hibachi and sushi place. Very good. If you know me, you know that that's my vibe. You know, I'm here for the sushi, you know. They had really good sushi, and I had never been to hibachi before, and so it was really cool like seeing someone cook but at the same time perform while they're cooking. It was a very interesting experience, but it was really fun to watch him do that and like make up songs and do tricks with the spatulas, and yeah, it was really cool. And the food was so good. Yeah, and then after that, I think we went and saw a guitar player play in one of the bars. He was really good. They have like live music all over, and like performers all over the ship. And that might have been the same night that we saw Grease on the ship, which was really cool. I don't know if I've ever been to a musical, like an actual like professionally done musical. And so that's kind of the show that they show. Like certain ships with Royal Caribbean have like staple shows that they show on that ship specifically, and Grease was the one for this ship. And so that was really cool to see that. Yeah, and then the last day we were sailing back. It was called a sea day, which is basically where you're just sailing the whole day. We were sailing back to Port Canaveral, and we had breakfast in the main dining room. I think that's the only meal that I thought was a little bland. I think I had the eggs Benedict and there just wasn't a lot of like salt or flavor in the eggs Benedict, but that's like the only meal that I would say that with. You know, all of the other meals were spot on. And then we just spent some time kind of exploring the ship and walking around a little bit more. Then we went later in the day to this event that they had in one of the bars called Name That Tune Disney Edition, and it was packed in that bar because there were so many people who came for the competition, and we almost won. Like there was a couple songs that we got the name wrong. It was a lot of fun. Yeah, and then we got back to Port Canaveral the next day, and we had to wake up earlier in the morning, but then we got off the ship at around 8-ish. And then we caught a shuttle back to the airport because that's just where they take people when their cruise is done. And then we rented a car from the airport, just drive around a little bit because we had a little bit before we could check into the hotel. We drove around for a bit and we found this really good Chinese buffet for lunch. And then after lunch, my dad and I were kind of doing some research about some different stuff around us that we could do, and we saw this really big Ferris wheel kind of in the area that we were. It was actually at a place called Icon Park, which has a bunch of different like things you can go and do. And then after we had killed some time, we went and checked into our hotel room. My mom just kind of was really tired, and so she wanted to hang out at the hotel room for a while. And then my dad and I, we went to Icon Park and we did the Ferris wheel, which was kind of spooky, to be honest, because if you know me, you know I have a hard time with heights. And so basically you pay for like one round around the Ferris wheel, but it takes about 20 minutes to get around because it moves slow. Yeah, I struggled a little bit with that just because we were slowly going higher and higher and higher and higher and higher. And my dad was laughing at me the whole time. Like he struggles with heights too, which is funny that he was laughing at me. For some reason, he was doing better than I was. I had a hard time for about the first 10 minutes. And then once we got to the tippity top, I was able to like adjust okay. And then we started going down, and I started to feel a little bit better and a little bit more comfortable. Excuse me. I started to feel a little bit more comfortable, but it was really cool. It was just a little scary at first. We did that, and then we went to Sea Life, which was an aquarium in the same park, and we saw a bunch of really cool fish. I'll put some pictures here and maybe some videos in here too. Yeah, it was really cool, like getting to experience all of that. Wow. That's crazy. BT dubs. It was Cinco de Mayo the day we got back. Because it was Cinco de Mayo, we wanted to go to a Mexican place for dinner, but you better know that every single Mexican joint was packed and we were not about to get all up in that beeswax. And so we just decided to go to a pizza place. You know, the pizza was all right. It was a little spendy, which, you know, it's Florida, so I'm not surprised. So we had dinner there, and then we went back to our hotel and we crashed for the night. And then we had to get up really early the next morning because our flight left at 8, which meant we had to be at the airport at 6. We had to drop off the rental car, so that means we had to be there a little bit earlier. So I was waking up at like 4:30 in the morning. So it was a little bit of an early morning. So we get to the airport and stuff, and you know, things are stressful. We're trying to figure out where to go and how to get to where we need to be for our flight. And then we get there and we fly back to Denver. And then in Denver, coming back, we had like a 9-hour layover. Kind of a long time, but we brought a card game that we played for a few hours, which kind of helped us pass the time. Like we maybe played it for 2 or 3 hours. It took up a good amount of time. But yeah, we had lunch and dinner there. We played the card game that helped pass the time. I I love doing word searches, like physical word searches, and so I have like a book that I brought with me to pass the time, and mom and dad just napped and watched, you know, stuff on their phone, but we were able to pass the time relatively well. We left Denver at like 7:30, maybe 8 at night, and we got back to Portland at around, might have been a little after 10. And so we stayed the night actually in Vancouver, right across the river, in a hotel there. And then the next morning we got up, had breakfast at the hotel, and then we drove back to Eugene, which is where I had left the car that I was borrowing from my aunt. And then we parted ways and we drove home. And yeah, that's all she wrote for the cruise trip. But it was a very cool experience. If I had to say I'd change anything about it, for one, like obviously I'm very grateful that we got to go, like at all. I think I would have liked a little bit of a longer cruise, like maybe a full week's worth of a cruise. This one was 4 nights, which was, I think, a good starter cruise, but definitely the next one I want to go on is like a full week. Also, as much as I loved being there and as much as I loved like the experience of it all, if I could do it again, I would be more mentally present, because there was a good portion of it that I had a hard time just being in the moment and present and self-aware and, you know, just aware of everything that was happening. Like I had some really good moments of like being in the moment, but I also know that there was a lot of it where I wasn't. And so I think if I could fix or change anything about it, it would be that. Either way, it was a really fun experience, and I'm so glad that I got to do it. I look forward to doing many more cruises in the future because I really liked that way of vacationing. It was very fun. Anyway, thank you guys so much for joining me for this video. I had a really good time kind of debriefing this trip with you guys. It happened about a month ago, which is crazy to think about, but it happened about a month ago. It was so incredibly fun, and I can't wait to go on another cruise next year. I think we're gonna try to do like a whole family cruise where my brother is involved and his family and stuff. So I'm really excited for the possibility of that. Yeah, but thank you guys for joining me on this journey of recapping my first cruise and, you know, getting to experience Florida for the first time, and I had a really fun time. Thank you guys again so much for joining me. You can follow me on my socials. I am JJSummers1501 on Instagram and TikTok. It's the same username for the both of those. And then I am Erin Summerlin on Facebook. And if you want to DM me and just say hi, or if you want to, you know, ask any questions, or if you'd like to suggest a video idea for me that you might want to see me do, I'd love to hear it, and I'd love to talk to you guys. And I welcome any suggestions, any feedback, any video ideas that you might have to throw at me. And so thank you guys so much for joining me. I'm gonna try to post more regularly. I know I say that every time, but honestly, because of some shifts in my schedule and shifts that have happened at work, I think I will have a little bit more time to incorporate this into my schedule and work it in so that I can do more of this, because I want to do more of this, because I love doing more of this and just creating content to put out into the world. And eventually I'd like to do some more stuff like maybe product reviews, some song covers, more poem readings, just a wide variety of stuff like Q&A or whatever. But yeah, that's kind of the vibe I'd like to go with. And so thanks again, you guys, for joining me for this. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss whenever I post. And you'll be the first to know about it if you hit the bell. Again, thanks for joining me, you guys, and I will catch you on the flip side. See ya.